So what does this mean? So now we're shifting gears again. We're running a business and we're trying to figure out how to count the money that we had at the end of the night. That makes sense? Any of you do that at your particular job?
Yeah, Steve does. Check registry.
Check register?
Closing.
Okay, perfect. So this will be easy for you guys. So back in the day, there were actually cash registers, right? Now everything's probably on what? What do you guys deal with?
Q-square, like it's like a smart.
Like an iPhone or an iPad kind of thing? Or you do count your stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
That's what we did.
I don't know, Steve counts cash and he takes out the little receipt deal.
Okay, perfect. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. So some people are still kind of what I would call old school, right? Some people are more high tech with theirs. If you think about someplace like at Walmart or Fairway, as that's going through the cycle, or you're putting it through that scanner and it's beeping it into the system, right? Their scanners and stuff can actually probably do their inventory for them as they go and all those kind of things too. Okay, so instead of some of you that are still by hand, we'd have to go back and we'd have to figure out. So again, when I was at the restaurant, we had a computer system, but at the same time, we did a lot of, especially like our alcohol buying, we would do that by just going through the process of looking at our shelves or something instead of, buying a case of bottles that were 24 in that box. We would do it basically bottle to bottle, okay? Or a keg or something like that. Now our food supply was probably a little different, okay? So we'd have big cans of pizza sauce, or we'd order our dough or those kind of things. We would make sure that our inventory was a little tighter. So again, as you probably know that the scanner fixes that or runs that barcode, and most of the time, if you're at Walmart or Fairway, again, you can just see how much your sales tax is figuring out. They don't tally up the whole total and then figure out the sales tax at the end. That computer is smart enough that it's figuring that tax over and over and over again every time that you do it, and doing that 7%. Okay. So again, like I said, if some of them are connected to your inventory, they would have probably some way to then throw a message to whoever was in charge of ordering your stuff if you got low on things. So like for Fairway, if there's a huge toilet paper issue and they started buying it all up like in the pandemic, as soon as their spot, whatever they decided what it was, hit that spot, it would start shooting messages somewhere. Okay, so it would tell if he's the order guy, hey, we need to order this again. And back then it was probably constant, right? Trying to get those kind of things. Now hopefully we're kind of catching up on all that stuff, but we would still do it. So then, like Evan said, what we're going to talk about here is going through the process of counting down how much money you have at the end from where you started, and then seeing if you had any expenses throughout the day, meaning maybe you had to send somebody to, if you're running a restaurant, you had to send somebody to get
Green peppers,
Okay,
onions,
maybe.
Doritos,
Yeah.
flour,
something,
sugar.
right? So basically there should be some way that you can print out a report. The report's going to show you your total sales and have to prove the cash. So we're checking basically at the end of the night, proving cash to see what? Why do we do this at the end of the night?
Make sure no money is-
Profit.
What if somebody's trying to steal from us? If we made a profit and how much we kind of made, right? Made or missed. Maybe it's under. Maybe it is. You don't know. Okay? So if your register is short, then obviously we have different problems. What are the other things that could make it short?
You gave someone the wrong chain.
Okay, wrong change. What else?
Miscount.
Okay, just straight miscounting, right? You got caught doing 20s really fast and there was a 10 in there but you didn't notice, right? What else? Again, maybe you don't know some of these things, but at the parlor, do you guys ever have like coupons?
Yeah.
Okay, so your coupon,
Count those in.
you count those separate, but then you'd have to figure that coupon through your system somehow. Okay? Then you have to decide how are you going to process like checks. Is check really a cash? Essentially, maybe yes, maybe no, but probably not directly cash because who knows if that check's gonna clear. You know what I mean? Or whatever. Then you have to decide on how you're going to process credit cards or debit cards. Okay? Some restaurants have only gone to credit cards now, right? There's a big talk like for in our conference next year to not have cash available at even a concession stand.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah. So then you would have to have a debit card to run it. So
Everybody would need new systems.
yeah, you're right.
Little kids.
And the parents not gonna give a kid their debit card.
Well,
anymore.
but that's a big thing. And so then there's talk about going to like online ticketing for everything instead of having cash. So part of it is a lot simpler, but again, then you have to have those capabilities too. So the initial expense would be something different, but that's kind of different from when you run a credit card or your debit card at wherever we're talking about, right? So if you run your debit card, there's probably a list of numbers or how many transactions you do in a day. You'd have that grand total then too to affect your grand total at the end. And then the other thing that affects that total is, did somebody give you a tip? And so do you guys at the parlor, if somebody gives you a tip straight up,
We split them.
you split them. Okay, but what happens if somebody does that on a debit card receipt?
They just put it into our system, like you can choose, after you take out your credit card, just leave a tip. You can choose a percentage and it just goes into our system.
Okay.
You take that out as cash.
And then you take it out right away? Or at the
Right
end?
away At the end of the shift.
Okay, so you'd have to know that, and then like when I was doing that back in the day, we would have each individual person have their own credit cards, right? So if we had one person waitressing in the back and one in the front and then the bartender, there could be 3 different groups of transactions. Well, every time somebody runs their card, it starts tallying how many transactions you have, 1, 2, 3, 4. So at the end of like a Wednesday night, we might have 150 transactions because it was wings night. All right, so then if Yaz, the waiter up front, and bunks the waitress in the back, at the end of the night, Ya would have to go through every single one of those and punch in if he got a tip. Now, some people might have left cash. Well, then that second, or you don't have to go back to that transaction. Some people then might have left him a tip, and he had a choice then. Did he go and ring that in right away? When he got that, when he ran the credit card, did he go right back and then put in that tip, or did he wait till the end of the night and do them all at one time? So it's kind of a pain, but at the same time, if you didn't punch those in there, then your book numbers would be way off because you're kind of converting that into cash for those people to take out. That makes sense what I'm saying there? And so, but most of the time during that shift, you didn't have time to just stop and start punching in all those numbers. So a lot of times our people would wait till the end of the night and then go through and do all of them. But, some people would have 75, so it'd take a while. But that makes a big difference. So there's probably a person in charge, and all of you probably know who that person is, right? And so we're going to try to use this kind of formula to try to figure this out. So it says start with the cash and the register. So again, do you all realize that there's always a starting amount in there, right? Do you know how much you start out with?
850.
How much?
850.
850. So there's probably what?
There's
A couple $100 in fives.
We don't keep hundreds in there.
No, but I mean a couple hundred stacks of fives of $100, and then some ones probably and some tens. Okay, that's usually what it is. And then if some people get down to it, they might do change too. You know what, like Fairway starts out with in their tray?
Yeah, they have a certain amount. I don't know what it
You know,
is.
but they would have that certain amount. And again, that's just to give cash back, right? What stinks about that is what? If somebody comes in, the first 3 people at lunch and uses a $100 bill, then you're kind of, you know, messed up for the rest of the day. Now, you know, that's where we really, you know, kind of urge people not to do that. But on a Friday afternoon, it was hard for, you know, some of those people. So you're going to figure that out. Then you're going to talk about, and you would have some kind of category to figure all these other things out. Was there any refunds? Well, you're probably not going to give a whole lot of refunds in the restaurant business. You might have to, but normally if you give a refund, you're probably going to give them some kind of coupon for the next time they come, instead of giving their money back for that night. Personal, to me, personal would be, do any of your companies or whatever allow you to charge things?
Yeah, charge accounts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for you guys as employees?
No,
No.
just to like other businesses.
Okay, different account.
Okay.
Different account. Good
Then
idea.
we don't-
Remember that.
What does that mean?
So like at our restaurant, if at the end of the night, Evan was a kitchen guy, and then he wanted to eat supper that night. So most of the time, we didn't just give them the food. They had to pay for it at least a little. If they were on shift, I think it was half. So, but he didn't have any money on it. So if he made a pizza, we would calculate what that pizza is, say that it was an employee discount, give him half off, and he owes us $6. Well, he didn't have $6, so we would write that up on a piece of paper and say, Evan owes $6 on 3/15 for pizza, and we'd put it in this pile right here, but then we'd have to cancel that out. So that's what I would mean by personal.
It's a tab.
We
A
have-
tab,
we have
right.
an app where they can buy it for, they have to pay like, half of the price down, and then they make payments on it.
But they can make payments on it. Okay, perfect. So you kind of have that thing. So you would have to, that person that's in charge would have to know how to do that. Okay? So we would actually get a grand total and then figure that out and figure that, deduct that out of our system. But realistically, it's in a pile somewhere else that should get paid sooner than later, right? Okay. Then obviously we talked about coupons and discounts. Those are kind of a little, kind of the same, but not really. Coupons are probably more for the outside people, meaning they would cut it out of a paper or something or bring it in, right, for your coupon. Maybe they got it at a basketball game and they brought it to the parlor and they got a free ice cream cone, right? But they would have to, your system or your people would have to know how that would work out. A discount would be more like what Jan was talking about, or your employees, right? You'd give them an employee discount. So if that money is just deducted off of there, it's probably not that big of a deal. But if there's a discount, then you would have to recalculate, and you would have to find a way of doing it, okay? And then at the end, you would just figure out, okay, what do I need, or did I cover everything, or am I short, or am I long? Again, if I'm short, and it's short a lot, now are we talking a short $1? Probably don't get bent out of shape too much, right? Especially then you got to also think about at the end of the time, do you count change? You know? So like for us, we never counted change. So we could have been off $10 to $15 even, right?
Takes forever.
Right. Because change stinks. So you would take that into your calculating, mind. But if you ended up with $1.35, you're probably not going to lose sleep on it. If it's $135, then we're going to lose sleep on it, right? And $135 was, well, Dylan forgot to put in his tips at the end of the night. It's not a big deal. You just have to do it at the end of the night. But at 2:45 in the morning, you don't really want to do somebody else's job because you want to go home. But again, that's why that person's manager, right? Because they're in charge of that stuff. So we'll go through and look at how to figure that out here in a second. So then, this is kind of what Bunk was talking about. Sales invoice and a credit memo. So there's an example of one of these on page 420. So when we're talking about a sales invoice, this means what to you? What does this mean to you? If you're talking about a sales invoice within one of those kind of companies. So if you're talking about a grocery store like Fairway, or you're talking about the parlor, or even if I'm talking about a restaurant,
Like what you all sold?
okay? Or,
It's
What
like
else?
when community brings in like slips to like what they're paying for. Is that what you mean?
okay,
Invoice?
that's kind of a version of it. Okay, so that's a different way of them paying for it. The big part of this part right here, when you're looking at, is everybody on page 420? A big part of this is realizing what perspective the question is asking from. Does that make sense? So when you're talking about these credit memos and sales invoices, if I'm the restaurant owner, okay, and Ya's my supplier, okay, that makes sense? So I buy my pizza ingredients from Ya. He's going to give me a bill, basically, when he arrives with his stuff. So it's going to say, just like this one does right here. See where it says garden products, and then to, and it says yard and stuff, and then shipped, how it was shipped, and the terms, and blah, blah, blah. But this is showing what they brought to me. So Yah would give that to me. He would say, you had 20 cans of pizza sauce, and you had 4 bags of mozzarella cheese, and you had your peppers, and your mushrooms, and your whatever, right? But that would be all listed on there. So what I'm saying is, you got to understand, am I talking about, when I'm looking at this, am I talking about this as myself being the receiver of those, or am I talking in the perspective of Yah as the company that's giving them? So that we're both companies, but I rely on him for my products. So we would each have one of these things. If you went back to Yahir's business, his business office would have that same copy, but it would probably be read a little different because they're saying, well, this is what I shipped to them. Whereas I'm going to read it as, this is what I received from them. Does that make sense what I'm saying there? So just be careful when you start reading those kind of questions about that. So a credit memo, basically like if you see here on page 420, on the left-hand side, it shows you the quantity and then the description of what it is and a unit price. Now, again, we said that it was pizza products. They're doing, looks like they're more of a bum cars or something, right? So they had a certain kind of mower, a certain tiller, and a certain trimmer. And then, do you understand what it means by the unit price? That means what?
For one.
Just for one of them, right? So this is, they're going to have model R 237s, and we bought 23 of them from whoever it was, right? So, again, this is where it's confusing to me sometimes, or you just have to understand. Am I garden products or am I yard and stuff? Okay, and is garden products the supplier? Or is yard and stuff the supplier?
Garden products is a supplier.
Garden products is the supplier. So to me, it makes it easier to say garden products is the big company and yard and stuff, which is me, is the little company. I'm getting stuff from the big company. Okay? But again, somebody has to be in the big company, right? So if I worked for the big company, then I'd have a different change of mind. When I send that to the little person, and I'm not saying they're little, I'm just saying there's got to be somebody bigger than that company, right? Even the Menards and stuff get their stuff from what I would consider a bigger company, right? They're a huge company, but they got to get their stuff from something. They don't just make their own products, right?
Or they get their stuff from a smaller company.
But they get it, to me, that's still a bigger, they're getting it from that, so that's, you're right,
It's a
they
supply.
could. It could be a specialty person that sends them that supply. So yes,
Suppliers,
a supply company. That's maybe a better way instead of bigger.
a manufacturing company or.
There you go, manufacturing, yes. Okay, so you just gotta remember and understand what that means, okay? So, you could have this as, when it was delivered by, all the price extensions, you might think of this as a purchase invoice also. And then, it'd be really important that you had somebody that was always in charge of this. One specific person. Or if you had multiple shifts, obviously it's probably different people, but they're doing the same job. And why is that important?
So it's different.
Yeah, you don't want to get screwed out of some item, right? Or Bunk receives that shipment from Evan's company, and she notices that 2 of the lawnmowers doesn't have wheels. So is she really going to pay for that one? Probably not, until she calls Evan back and say, hey, where are my wheels? I'm not paying this until I get the actual product. Okay? Or if we go back to the pizza stuff, maybe my cans were dented and it popped the lid open. So that piece of sauce wasn't good anymore. Those kind of things. So you got to make sure that you're looking at it and thinking about it. So then, if you're talking about a credit memo, what does a credit memo mean?
Where you get credit back on an item.
Okay.
Shows what you charge.
Okay, so a couple different ways of thinking about a credit memo. Both ways are exactly right. One credit memo would be, okay, what did I charge and how are you going to pay for it? Okay, when the parlor or Fairway gets a shipment from, let's say, Coke, for instance, right? If Coke brings a big supply of pop to Fairway, does the person that received that write Coke a check right off the bat? Maybe, maybe not, right? Some companies, maybe that's how you do it. Other companies, they're going to have a credit memo to show, okay, we received all this, and now I owe Coke $1,500, right? Some companies would write that check. Some companies would just have a credit where they would pay it in the future.
They're always screwing this up at the parlor with ice cream tubs.
Are they?
My boss is pissed.
So they don't have enough, or
They-
what?
Yeah, they marked down that they gave us this amount, and they didn't. Yeah, big mess. One time, we were supposed to get like 100 tubs of peanut butter and fudge, and only got 1.
Oh,
They wrote, 2 extra zeros, I'm like, oh.
really? Yeah. So that probably puts a hamper in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So we would have done the same process on, like I said, the week before Thanksgiving, or before Wednesday nights, because that were really, really big nights for us. So if we wanted to order, there'd be nothing for us to go through like 3,000 wings in one night, But if we only had 300 wings, that's a big deal, right? So the other way of the credit memo is what Bunk was saying about. Okay, so Evan might send a credit memo to Bunkers saying, okay, yes, I realize that your 3 mowers didn't have wheels, so I'm crediting you that amount. If you send them back, you would have whatever the price was for 3 mowers on credit with us. Or it's basically kind of a refund in a sense. It could be 2 that way. Okay, so there's different ways of thinking about a credit memo. All right? And then we'll go through those. Okay, so let's try to look at a couple of these. So turn back to 419. Now notice on page 419, right in the middle, there's kind of a yellow thing. At the beginning of the time that you would start doing this little sheet of paper would probably be a key asset to you. By the time that, would you say, Steve was doing it, Steve probably doesn't have to have this piece of paper anymore, right? Because he's done it so many times, all right? Or whoever that person is. So notice on the top, they have their change fund, which means you're starting. So I said it was $850 for them. And then it says registered total of cash received, and then your total. So you're always going to add in that amount that you started with, and then you're going to do all of your subtractions. Okay, so in letter A, again, if you need to see any of this on the board, we can write these ones out. At the start of this morning work period on January 8th, Avery put $120 and change into his cash register drawer. When his work period finished, Avery's cash register showed $5,289.76 received and $76.30 paid out. Avery counted the money in the register and found he had $5,334.81 in cash. Was the cash short or over? Okay, so first things first. Let's think about this for a second. When they said that the cash register showed $5,200 received and $76.30 paid out. This to me, they're running what kind of business? I would say this to me means that they're running some kind of business where they're basically selling a lot of stuff, meaning like a Baumgartner's or a Walmart. So the reason that they would pay something out would be probably on like a return or something. But again, it's probably not a company that they do a whole lot of returns if they only had $76.30. So you just keep that in mind. Okay, so what are we gonna do to figure out our total?
Your 120 plus your $5,289.
Okay, so we take the amount of cash totals and add our beginning, and then what do I do with the 7630?
Subtract.
I subtract that out, okay? So that is what? That is what is where?
In the register.
In the register, okay? And then he's gonna count the money. Or that should be what is expected to be in the register, right? Okay? So again, this is where you kind of got to think, what does it actually mean? That's what should be there. And then he does the cash, or he counts it all out, and it's $5,334.84. So if I wanted to know which is, if I'm ahead or behind, which one is it better to have as what I would call the top number in your subtraction problem? The first part where you did your calculating, or the second part? We got split answers. What do you think? So is it more important for me to know how much cash I ended with, or is it more important for me to know how much I should have in there? I should have, right? So to me, I'm always going to put the first part on top, and then I'm going to subtract how much I counted in cash. And then if I have extra, what does that mean? If it's a positive number, what do I have? I have more. If it's a negative number, I need what? Right. Okay? That makes sense? So what do you think?
Short $40.
Short $40? No.
That must have been math, right?
Oh, you didn't have a calculator. Okay.
But you didn't get it for me.
You did it for me.
Oh, it's your job. Can't even do that for me on the weekend.
So 5,000, if you did the calculation at the beginning, 5,000. There you go. $5,333.46 should have been what we expected to be in there.
$1.35.
Okay, so here's the thing, and this is where you got to kind of think about this. So when we did our amounts, we should have $5,333 and what was it? 46 cents. Okay? And again, how would you describe this to yourself?
This is what we should have.
Okay, is everybody good with that? Amount in the register. Should have. Everybody good with that? And then at the end, he calculated or counted that they had $5,334 and how many cents? 81. So this is amount do have. That's a good way of saying it. So obviously we're going to subtract the two, and if we subtract the two, we get how much? I think it was $1.35. Okay. So is $1.35 short or is $1.35 over? Bless you.
Because, yeah, we have $1.35.
This is the amount we do have, so $1.35 is over. Okay, so we actually said it the wrong way the first time, right? We're gonna take the amount the cash amount that we have, and if you wanna think of it as a positive and a negative number, if you do this number minus this number, and it's a positive number, you're over. If this is a negative number, then you're short. Okay? So that's just something that needs to be looked at in your melon and understood. Okay? Let's turn the page real quick because we're kind of running out of time, but I want you to see an example of each section at least. In letter C, Celimation, an electronics wholesaler, sold these items to sell now, a small or a mall retailer. So, what Mr. Lammers was saying earlier, when they say it's a wholesaler, that's your what? That's their supplier, the big dogs. And then us, again, I'm saying us because I would think that we are the retailers, or the smaller person. They gave us all those phones, and then what was the total of the sales invoice? That one's pretty easy, right? The sales invoice for both parties would essentially be the same thing. One just owes it, and one should receive it. Okay? So again, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing 150 times $85.15, 75 times $14.80, right? Okay? And then in D, they talk about a credit memo because they had to send some of them back. So this is kind of what Bunk was talking about with her credit memo. So again, credit could be how much do I actually owe on my credit card, or credit could be what am I getting in because I had to return something. And this would be that type of, okay? Turn the page one more time. This is the one that tomorrow, like I said, we're running out of time. You might have to kind of talk to each other about when you get into problems like E and F, okay? Because they are sometimes confusing. So notice over here on the right-hand side, or above it in the yellow, this is basically telling you to do a running total of what your business did. So notice, the balance coming forward is what I owe to that supplier, people, all right? And then when it says charges versus credit, charges is me adding on to my total because I'm getting more product. So notice that this company didn't have a zero balance. They had some in there, but they're getting more stuff. So their balance is going to be higher when they make more charges. So sometimes, again, that word charge has two different meanings. And in this case, we're adding on to our total. Okay, so you might have to help each other out. If all those are confusing when you do them tomorrow, then we'll start back on that on Thursday.